Welcome to Big Bets on Campus podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese. I'm joined by Collin Wilson and Duck, and we are finishing up our G6 preview season here with Conference USA. Every other one of the G6 is now available over on YouTube. So if you haven't caught up on that, go to your podcast feed, subscribe to the YouTube channel at BBOC. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers there. So everyone who can add on, it really helps. It's getting the momentum getting into football season so more people get to hear from us throughout the fall. But guys, we've made it all the way to the end here, and our reward is to talk Conference USA. And you really gotta stretch to talk yourself into some of these teams being competitive on a national landscape, perspective. At least when we look back at last year, there was some good football. There was some surprising football. KENNESAW getting to double-digit wins. Jacksonville State. I think a lot of us had apprehension about Charles Kelly in year one. And all of a sudden, they come out, they win 9 games, they look really good doing it. And what I love about the G6 conferences is that if you follow them, you can get onto a star player early. Cam Cook has now moved his way through the transfer portal. He's going to be playing at West Virginia. We wish him luck, but he was an absolute monster last year. It took 3 guys to take him down on any carry. Hopefully we have a star or 2 break out this year in Conference USA. I'll go to you first, Collin. What are you excited about? Let's bring some positivity to this pod right off the bat before we get into these teams.
Tuesday, Wednesday night football in October should be better, a little bit higher quality this year. I think as they get more exposures, Conference USA has decided to be like, look, it's October. We can own this month because we'll go back to Saturday play in November where Maction really kind of takes over midweek. They've, for 2 years now, really tried to get their slot into where they have primetime football. And that really helps getting FCS, getting JUCOs, getting P4 guys that don't know how to play. So you're going to see portal influxes in this conference of guys that are from everywhere, but it's only because they get primetime spots in October. And I'm looking forward to this conference getting better and better.
Duck, in terms of the coaches, it kind of runs the gambit. You have Jamie Chadwell, who had some health concerns. He had, off-season procedure done. Hopefully he's back to 100%. Maybe he can, bring this Liberty program back to what they were when they went to the Fiesta Bowl not all that long ago. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you got a last chance U situation with Derek Mason. He's got to win now, or his coaching career from a head coaching perspective is probably over. And then you got the sprinkles of the Jerry Macks, the Willie Simmons going from the HBCU ranks and succeeding here at this level. That can be really exciting. Can you get on board with the coaching in this league as a way, if you want to just bend the ear of somebody at the bar and be like, why should I care about Conference USA? There's some interesting coaching storylines, no?
Yeah, and I think we've seen some of these teams that have been in the mediocre tier at the bottom with motivated coaches that are really trying to elevate the prowess of these programs. And it's been stunning the last couple of years at Liberty with Jamie Chadwell fielding decently talented teams, and the apathy and the disinterested nature of Liberty football. Even a guy like Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky just can't seem to get it all put together for a full season. And so I think you do have some really fascinating storylines in the coaching ranks here. And I think you've got a pivotal season for many of these programs where coaches now have to prove it. You've got Chadwell at Liberty where the fans are going to get tired of mediocrity. Derek Mason has 1 chance left. If they don't put it together, he's going to be told to hit the road. So Tony Sanchez at New Mexico State's another guy where they have got to finally start to put some things together and win football games. And that kind of adds to the lore of the Tuesday, Wednesday, weekday CUSA and teams that are fighting and clawing and scratching. You get some compression in the middle of the schedule. I think a lot of what this league is doing to enhance the exposure is good. It also creates some interesting schedule quirks as well. It's prove it time for some of these coaches.
Does Phil Longo make it to November? I'm going to set the over. I'm going to set the odds at about -110. I don't know what your guys' opinion is. Longo making November, that really could be an interesting watch.
I'm along on Longo, but we'll save that for the back half of this episode because they're certainly not at the top of the teams from an overall win perspective. So let's start with one, Liberty. The Flames 4-8 last year, first losing season for Jamie Chadwell since 2019. I mentioned the health factor. The school announced a serious but treatable medical condition. That offseason surgery had him back in the saddle in the spring. Hopefully he can light a fire under these guys because, as Duck said, they were a bit listless really in the last year and a half. So something to monitor there. 49th nationally in returning production. Their win total set at 8.5 to win this conference at about 5-2, although there's still some 3-1s out there in the market. They reloaded at running back with some really interesting pieces. That's where I'd like to start this preview. Kanye Udo was an absolute beast at Army a couple of years ago. Cam Davis, a former blue chipper, could be a battering ram at 230 pounds. And that's really when this offense starts to sing, when they can just absolutely, dominate teams in the trenches, impose their will with the running game. But will an experienced offensive line, they're 10th, by the way, and great backs be enough to offset, what has been just poor quarterback play, which has really been shocking. Ethan Vasco was a bust, plain and simple. More picks than passing touchdowns. Didn't give them the boost on the ground that we were expecting when we previewed this team last August. He's in a battle right now with Sean Purdy. I'm hoping that Purdy is absolutely the starter from day one. There's no looking over his shoulder because he's a talented player who just needs to improve on his accuracy, I think, to be a quality starter in this league. Defensively, the entire secondary is new after more or less losing their entire two deep. Also, DC Sean Quinn is new. He performed miracles at Savannah State. I love coaches who can do more with less. There's not a poorer program at the FCS level than Savannah State. About 5 years ago, he was doing that and had them winning, 7, 8, 9 games before moving up to coach linebackers at Virginia Tech. This is his opportunity to call plays. I think he could be the answer. What are we going to need to see here? I'll go to you first, Duck. So much was wrong with Liberty under the hood, but a part of it was not just the personnel and the play calling. It was that motivation and that fire in their belly. Do you think the Flames get back to that level?
I think there's no choice for Chadwell. I think the fan base invests so much of their time and their resources and dollars allocated to the football program to where they're not going to tolerate the uninspired, disinterested football that we've seen over the last 2 years. Liberty hasn't been the same since that 48-6 blowout loss in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon several years back. The team was just 1-5 on the road last year. And it's been a terrible experience for bettors who have been backing the Flames, as Liberty is just 6-18 against the number over the last 2 years. I do like that Chadwell is going to reclaim play calling duties this year in an attempt to fix the rushing offense, which was way down compared to their standard over the last couple of seasons. I think Kanye Udo is going to run through the schedule. Cam Davis, like you mentioned, Peyton Jones is a nice back. They've got guys that are going to fit the system, and they will have fresh legs in the fourth quarter and as they get deeper into the schedule. So if they can tweak a little bit with the play calling, I think this offense is due to explode. I actually think that Deshaun Purdy or potentially even Jalen Henderson can fit the system from a quarterback perspective. And I also believe Liberty is going to be much tougher on both sides of the trenches this year, which will really help them as they get into league play. Aaron Hester, Marcus Clark, Mike Marvis, all reliable pieces of the defensive trench that are returning. The back end could give up some explosive plays. The secondary is being rebuilt, but I do think that the offense can overcome some of that. And despite Liberty not earning or deserving any of our respect, I do think this is a strong team. I think it's a team that will contend to win the conference. I've got Liberty favored in 10 or 11 games this season, and they do draw a manageable schedule on the road in league play. My betting deliverable is I want to bet game overs with Liberty, particularly against James Madison, Coastal, Delaware, and Sam Houston State early, as I think their scheme is equipped to take advantage of those defenses.
Collin, where do you come down on Chadwell? Because clearly, there was a time when I was shocked that he was not taking P4 jobs. I know that Liberty is paying him top dollar at the G6 level. And you certainly get some mulligan now that you realize, the health concerns, and you can see that the locker room got away from him because he wasn't 100% locked in. So what are your expectations in a really rare and unique situation where you have a coach that really was razor sharp for so long, then lost control of his team a little bit, and now is trying to get back to them playing the kind of football that sent them to the Fiesta Bowl?
Right. We never doubted Jamie Chadwell. He was Joe Moglia's hand-picked successor to the program. So I never thought Grayson McCall was the reason Coastal was so good. I always thought it was Jamie Chadwell and the staff that he had put together. So I give him a little bit of a pass on what happened last year, and I actually believe that it was health. I think the Kanye Udo acquirement through the transfer portal deserves a little bit more attention, because a year ago at this time, I said Kanye Udo going to Arizona State is a horrible move because he doesn't catch wheel routes out of the back like Scadaboo does. He is a power back, what Army used him, and he ran all over everybody. Well, he figured that out too. Maybe I should go into being an agent. I don't know. But he figured that out too. Now he's back at Liberty where he's going to run all over everybody. So I give Chadwell a pass. I think Kanye Udo, you just wipe off what happened at Arizona State. You take those Army numbers and you come in. My betting deliverable, I make this 8.4. Win total's at 8.5. I think SP Plus is like 8.8. So there's really no value in the market on Liberty. But what I do have to say about Jamie Chadwell, September 24th, Liberty's going to play Coastal Carolina. You got to think his best coaching job of the year, if you could put it by week, is going to come September 24th against Coastal. Meaning, I think you should be taking Delaware as a 7-point dog the following week against Liberty. So win total is correct. Watch out for that week after Liberty plays Coastal.
I'm just going to put this out there. The check cleared for Kanye Udo in Tempe. So he got paid.
Yeah.
I think he had like 50 carries. That was a pretty good situation for him. He comes in fresh. I'm sure he's not playing gratis for Liberty this year. He's going to get some money there as well. So I agree in terms of the fit wasn't right, but at least, you can have worse off seasons than spending it at Arizona State for multiple reasons. All right, let's talk Western Kentucky. The Hilltoppers 9-4 last year, but they're 133rd in returning production. They do bring back Rodney Tisdale Jr. and KD Hutchinson, but that's about it. Rick Bowie, we mentioned him in the UTSA preview, left to call plays for them in San Antonio. Bodie Reeder takes over as OC. Lots of experience calling plays, but not the good kind of experience. At Middle Tennessee, their offense has really stunk out loud the last 2 years, which is concerning. Their win total set at 7. The odds to win the conference just north of 4-1. How much, let's play the game. How much do we believe in Tyson Helton? Because it's 7 years and 7 bowl trips, and the last 5 years, 8.6 wins per season. He does so much. He consistently has churn with his staff, but Reeder, being his 6th OC in 7 years, does it finally bite him? This one was a bit strange to me in terms of the hire, because usually he goes for the rising star, the young coach, someone who has a bit of a unique angle to bring to the league, so there's not a lot of film. Reeder's kind of the opposite. A lot of new faces, as I mentioned, especially on the offensive line. And Tisdale needs to progress and needs to be more consistent. Is Reeder the right guy to kind of foster that environment where he takes that step forward? Defense was a lot like G6 defenses that we preview. They were great in Havoc. They created negative plays, but they were awful when it came to giving up explosives. This transfer class, by the way, was light on defensive players. So did they develop enough under Davis Merritt, the defensive coordinator? To me, that's another gamble. So, Collin, where are we on the toppers, and how shocked were you to see Bodie Reeder not only maintain his level as an OC, not have to take a step back or kind of bide his time, at an FCS job, to immediately stay at the FBS level, given how poor those Blue Raider offenses were?
I just think that's a product of what other jobs were available for him to step up to. And that if you make a lateral move within your conference and you go to Western Kentucky, it's going to spell bigger things for you. Like, Tyson Helton at the core is a defensive guy. He's been blessed by Houston Baptist, now Houston Christian, Kitley, Bailey Zappi. You get all of this offensive firepower, but that's not Tyson Helton whatsoever. He's always been a defensive mind. So, he's rolling the dice again, and we'll see if he has a new OC next year. But the quarterback position for me is a real problem here. Like Rodney Tisdale, 6 games for Western Kentucky, 9-7 TD to INT ratio. But Brock Glenn is coming in. Remember that playoff run that Florida State? We deserve to compete for the national championship with Brock Glenn as our quarterback. I know he's got 175 passing attempts from Florida State, but you still did not show me that you can run a high-powered offense that we're expecting out of Western Kentucky. And I don't like this schedule whatsoever. Starting off with 3 consecutive road games, Nevada, cross-country to Georgia, Indiana. Like, what are we trying to do here? How much money do we need for the Hilltoppers? Like, does the mascot need refitting with his red and his felt and his frumpy outfit? Like, why are we taking games with Georgia and Indiana on the schedule? I don't get it at all. But, from a numbers perspective, I make this exactly on 6.5. The under 6.5 is plus 140. They can go over that total, but the defense is going to be a problem. 9 of the top 11 tacklers are gone through graduation or transfer portal. I don't like the quarterback situation, but I do believe in the offensive coordinator, so it's a pass for me.
All right, Duck, we talked about Jamie Chadwell. You gave him a pass. We believe that he's going to get it going in the right direction. You're selling early on Tyson Helton. He hasn't shown us that he can bottom out and need a rebuilding year. He just consistently gets the Hilltoppers to bowl games, but you're not buying it this year.
I think they could make a bowl game, but you've got another offensive coordinator change, more turnover on the offensive line, another scheme change. And I'm concerned that they're still kind of neck and neck with quarterback with Brock Glenn coming in. They're not decided on either one yet. And it's a problem because you're not going to get a ton of rushing productivity that's going to return. I think A.J. Allen and Khalib Hicks they'll split time until a star emerges, but I don't know that a star is going to emerge in the backfield, and I'm not convinced that either one of them can command an elite level passing attack. The receiver core here is decent with Hutchinson back, Cam Flowers, Quincy Burrows, and Isaiah Rockwell come over. Rockwell from Prairie View A&M, where he was a very explosive receiver at the FCS level. But I'm concerned about the O-line. I'm concerned about the defensive front seven as well. They might be the worst aggregate front seven in the entire conference outside of Sam Houston State. They're going to give it up on the ground. They're not going to be able to stop the run. I'm very concerned about that. All of last year's productivity on the D-line is gone, and it wasn't even that tough last year. So we'll see. They don't have a wowing unit. The linebacker group has very little experience. Garrison Madden comes in. Elon Jones is in. Jordan Donald could be okay, but they're going to rotate 8 guys in the 2-deep at linebacker until they figure out what they have. And when are they going to do that? They're going to do that on the road the first 3 weeks. They could start 0-3. I think they will start 0-3. And then what happens? You got 7 road games. You lose a home game. You got to go to New Mexico State. You go to Middle Tennessee for 100 Miles of Hate rivalry game. There's some tricky conference games here. And I think this is an interesting situation with Western Kentucky because the conference win total is telling here. The conference win total offering is 5.5, heavily juiced to the under. Vegas thinks these guys are losing 2 or 3 conference games, and I do too. And that's going to lead to 6-6 or 7-5. So I was not looking at the alternate win total, but I did play the standard win total, which is widely available at 7.5. I did go under.
All right, let's turn to Jacksonville State. The Gamecocks 9-5 last year. As I mentioned at the top, it was the Cam Cook show, off to West Virginia, but they do bring back a ton of production, otherwise second most in the conference. They really focus on the offensive line in the portal. Will that attention to detail pay off with this running game? You win 9 games, you get to the conference title game. Producing a star like Cook is fantastic. You should feel great about yourselves in year 1 of Charles Kelly. But you did win 5 games by 4 points or less. So when you play with fire like that, how good were you and how close were you to being kind of just a mediocre also-ran in the league? Clint Trickett moves on to Maryland as their OC, sliding Taylor Housewright from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator. But I want to pause here for a moment because he was a Joe Moorhead protege, and when he was calling plays for Montana State for 3 years, his offenses averaged 37 points per game and finished top 3 in scoring in the FCS twice. He was a genius when it came to the quarterback run game. Tommy Mellott, the year after he left, went on to win the Walter Payton Award in his 3rd year in that system. I think that's great news for Caden Creel, maybe the best G6 quarterback to a new offensive coordinator marriage, scheme to skill set. I think this is going to be very smooth. Does someone, show up in the backfield? You don't need to be Cam Cook. It's like we talked about with Ashton Genty last year. Can you, in the aggregate, replace someone like that? Creel, though, will he improve as a passer? I think that's the rub. He does have DeAndre Johnson at 6'8" monster to go up for those go balls. Averaged 24 yards per reception, 6 TDs on just 30 receptions last year. They need to use him a little bit more to make sure that people aren't just packing the box to stop the zone replays. Charles Kelly, I think once again has the makings of a solid Conference USA defense. And if there's small school haul from programs like North Carolina A&T, LaGrange, Albany State, if some of those pan out, I could see them cracking the top 100, finishing in the 90s in defensive SP+. It's going to start early. Week 0 at North Dakota State provides them with 2 mid-season buys in Week 5 and Week 8. And for a team that, potentially is a little bit thinner, this year in terms of, what they're putting out there in their starting 22, they don't want to get those guys banged up. It's really nice. And we played the other side of this for teams that go 7 and 8 weeks without a bye. This actually lines up pretty well. No Liberty on the schedule. They do go to Western and Delaware late. I still like the over. I think there's a good shot they're going to make the title game here. Duck, you seem to be bullish on Jacksonville State. What's your thought, as someone who follows the FCS closer than anybody, what do you think about this switch in for Housewright, moving from tight end to play caller here on the offensive side of the ball?
I think it's probably going to be fairly seamless. They want to run the football. They maintained a 2-to-1 rushing passing split last year, and I think we'll see more of that. I do think we'll see a little bit more RPO game, and I think we'll see the freedom for Creel to throw the ball downfield. Interestingly enough, DeAndre Johnson was so underutilized during the first half of last season. During the first 7 games, the guy only had 4 catches. And he wasn't even playing in the regular rotation at times, but he had 4 100-yard games and 6 touchdowns the second half of the season, and he will be much more involved this year. 6'8", 215. He's got a leaping ability, good catch radius. a genuine, legitimate red zone and deep ball weapon. And they also get Ronell Johnson in from Missouri State, a guy who caught 35 passes for 463 yards and 2 touchdowns last season in an offense that featured 5 equally utilized receivers. I think he'll have a big target share this year. It's Johnson and Johnson in the receiver room. I think we get another year with Caden Creel to develop into the system. They don't have an elite running back like Cam Cook last year, but they will have a committee, and I think that the system will allow for a star to emerge. This is going to be a strong offense. I think we'll see the explosiveness. I think the job Charles Kelly did last season with bare cupboards and low expectations was incredible. Jacksonville State has maintained their program success, and they transferred from FCS seamlessly without missing a beat. I think we see that again this season. I think they have a deep front seven on the defensive line and linebacker group. Jawan Campbell, Curtis Perry, Max Sanders, even Walter Osteen is a good player. That's a strong front. The last 5 games of the season, they will be favored to win, and I think they can win every one of those. New Mexico State, Sam Houston, Western, Missouri State, and Delaware are all winnable games, and I do think this is an opportunity for this team to get on a roll late, get some momentum, and get into the conference championship game. This is my pick to win the conference. They're plus 525 over at Caesars. Another deliverable. Week 0, they are very live against North Dakota State. It's even teams, top to bottom, talent, composite rank. North Dakota State will transition to the FBS level much better than their counterpart Sacramento State, but they are down a notch in the offensive and defensive trench. The tight end play isn't as strong. The running game, the explosive receivers for North Dakota State are not there. Jacksonville State can win the opener, so anything over 7, you're getting a full touchdown, 7.5. It is absolutely a play on Jacksonville State in week 0.
Now, Colin, we've all done this before. You make up your minds in July, August on a team, and then you have FOMO throughout the entire year when you were not only wrong, but you missed the runaway train, the bandwagon. That was me last year with Jacksonville State. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I think all the pieces are there offensively for them to be very good. Do you think the loss of Cam Cook, though, is going to hold them back from returning to the Conference USA title game?
It's the area that I would like to have resolved for the running back, because this is the best defensive line. This is the best linebacker core in Conference USA. This is the best quarterback. And frankly, I think outside of Liberty might be the best offensive line. That'll be upset. I mean, when you look at the offensive line, 6,101 returning snaps. And I get that's a lot of 4 FCS starters that were full-time starters. I get that. But when you accumulate all of the experience they have in the offensive line, this running game should have massive holes to get through, which means that Caden Creel, who had over 1,100 rushing yards last year, more importantly, 668 yards on designed run calls, right? Don't get confused. Scrambling yards are different than designed run calls. So if Creel can potentially bridge to the next generation of running backs that are to come through, and maybe they figure that out by the time the big games come, the money games come, Jacksonville State is going to be just fine here. I mean, this is an advantageous schedule. No Liberty in Conference USA play. Great offensive line, like I said. So, look, Jacksonville State, I think, absolutely needs to be in your portfolio to win this conference. I make it 7.5. The win total is at 7.5. I think over plus 105, so you're getting plus juice. Reach for the stars, baby, here. I think Jacksonville State is in the championship game, so why not take any number above plus 450 on the Gamecocks? Oh, by the way, Charles Kelly was getting shit for this job last year. Like, what a bad hire. Deion Sanders didn't like him. He won't fit. Rich Rod, this. Like, look what he did. I mean, a year later
incredible.
now. Yeah, here we are. They're going to the championship game. You can't have this kind of defense, this offensive line, and that quarterback, and not have a massive breakdown of injuries or locker room, something that we don't know about, for them not to make the championship game.
We go from chickens to chickens, Gamecocks to the Blue Hens of Delaware, and we can agree to disagree. Maybe we're thinking this is a Chick-fil-A down to a Bojangles situation, a downgrade in overall chicken quality. Let's see. The Blue Hens, 7-6 last year. They did upset a very good UConn team, 25th in returning production, including Nick Minicucci, who almost threw for 3,700 yards in his first season as the full-time starter. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. They played in 6 one-score games. They won 4 of them. The defense gave up explosives left and right. Joe Nathan Silver had 2 big games and then was largely invisible for the rest of the time. Really threw off their run-pass balance. But this was all year 1 of FBS status. They got to a bowl game, getting that waiver. Minakuchi returns, a strong line in front of him. Sean Wilson was a breakout, receiver as a freshman. He's back. I trust they'll be in the top 4 offensively in Conference USA with this quarterback and line situation. But let's talk where the rubber hits the road. This defense, woof, 126 in SP plus, and I can say, having watched a lot of UDEL games, it felt like they were in the 120s. They have to hit on Jalen Bell and Jaquise Alexander in the secondary because they gave up almost 3,200 yards through the air and 21 passing TDs. New faces give you hope, but at some point they got to show that they can stop the ball when it's in orbit. Front 7 is anyone's guess. The trench in particular is concerning. You guys are split, though. Dangerous or Minakuchi injury away from a disaster. You can go in either direction. Collin, tell me on your angle first.
Bojangles. I mean, I think it's worse than that. I mean, this is Churches. I think Raising Cane's is horrible. That's a really bad opinion, but
no, Raising Cane's is absolute trash. VC money came in. Yeah. VC money's trying to ruin college football. It ruined Churches, or it ruined Cane's. I don't know what happened to Cane's. It's inedible.
This is worse than Bojangles. Look, I'm not a fan of Delaware. What's going on with Minakuchi and everything else? I'm under 5.5 plus 130 here. I mean, Minakuchi does not have a lot of stuff coming back around him. They play the top 8 teams of Conference USA. They're going to dodge the one team that I think is in the cellar in Sam Houston. They have pretty average when it comes to offensive line snaps returning. There was some other things, in the second order win total that told me they got a little bit lucky with what they were doing last year. There's not a lot about Delaware that I love other than the fact that they have Nick Minakuchi coming back. And frankly, he made a lot of mistakes when he had a lot of pressure, and I don't think that's going to change this year. So they were also, pretty lucky in certain situations. I don't like the schedule. I don't like the fact that they didn't rebuild around Minakuchi. I don't know where they came up the money to keep him. I don't know why he stayed, because you're not going to get protected and you don't have any weapons. I think one of the great mysteries ESPN 30 for 30 should be around, why did Nick Minakuchi stay at Delaware when you had offers to go maybe to a P4 school? I don't get it, but he's the only thing that they've got. I'm under 5.5 plus 130 on this schedule all the way.
All right, Duck, you're going to paint a rosier picture. Maybe the chicken's not great, but the biscuits at Bojangles are quality. Like, there's elements of this team that are worthy of getting excited about. Is it enough to overcome the scheduling difficulty, the issues in the trenches, in your opinion?
I think the first half of the season, this team will be really feisty. We saw last year they overperformed against expectations before the defense faded. And I do think that there is a deliverable to take away if they're catching 4 touchdowns at Vandy, if they're catching a boatload of points against Virginia before the Wahoos really get into conference play. I think there's opportunities for Delaware against the number. The defense did fade so badly down the stretch, and we're going to have to see this team continue to outscore their opponents once again. The back 7 is undersized, and Delaware couldn't stop the pass. I do like the quarterback. I like Joe Silver at running back. I think there is some zip with the offense, and they should perform at least at the level that they did last season. But I just don't trust these guys to hold up for a full 12-game schedule. So in my current projections, I have all 8 conference games priced within a touchdown. So they're going to be in back and forth games. They're going to have opportunities, and they get a lot of the key opportunities at home. Hosting Liberty in week 5 is a tone setter for the rest of the conference season. They gave up so many points and yards to Liberty last year. It was grotesque how the defense performed. If they win that game, that really kind of gives this group belief that they belong and they could go on a run. I'm not saying they will, but I could see a logical path to where they get on a roll after that. The road slate is manageable. You go to Middle, you go to Kennesaw State and New Mexico State. But again, this defense is going to have to pony up. The 2 deep is going to have to provide some depth. They're going to have to sustain an injury or two like every other team does. And if the defense is performing at the level that it was last season, you're going to see a stinky loss like what they had last year, an embarrassing loss at Sam Houston State. Just truly remarkable that happened. So I think the betting deliverable is you want to bet overs late in the season because the defense is going to experience attrition and maybe they're just not at the level they need to be yet. So I'd go overs in the second half of the season. But I do think Delaware will be feisty and they will have opportunities to win games. I'm not saying they're going to win the conference, but they will have legitimate opportunities week in and week out to compete and notch wins.
Jerry Mack, what he did at Kennesaw, he should have been coach of the year. Just an incredible incredible turnaround to win 10 games with that program, to win Conference USA, to basically validate all the incredible work he did at North Carolina Central and show that he can absolutely coach. If they get to a bowl game again this year, he's got to be on at least interview lists for P4 jobs, if not some of the best jobs at the group of 6 level, because this guy did. I still don't really truly understand how he did it, because if you look back at the numbers, 72nd in offensive SP plus, 93rd on defense, 125th in special teams, yet they win 10 games. The 49% of their production returns, which is 6th in Conference USA. Their win total set at 6.5, 7-1 to run it back here. Amari Odom is gone at quarterback after averaging nearly 9 yards per attempt and chipping in 7 rushing touchdowns. And this is where it gets difficult for me. I have to separate a little bit from my admiration for the coach and look at this quarterback situation, because Ricky Collins comes in. He's got all the talent in the world. He's the 15th rated quarterback in the class of 2022, ahead of Sam Levitt, Marcel Reed, Lenoris Sellers, just to name a few. But he was an absolute mess at Syracuse. He bailed from the pocket too much. When he did stay in the pocket, he was inaccurate or an incredibly poor decision maker. But that was essentially the MO on Odom coming from Wofford before Jerry Mack and his OC, Mitch Mettello, got his hands on him. And they were able to fix that guy and turn him into a conference-winning quarterback. He's gone almost all small school and replacing 9 offensive starters. Tough to ask for him to hit on every single one of them again and repeat that magic, but I have a little bit more faith in him than some of these other schools in this conference that are following the same kind of blueprint. 9 of 19 players with 200-plus snaps return on defense. The transfer class was a mix of established playmakers from small schools, Alfred Thomas from Towson, and a handful of G6 guys looking for a fresh start. Not really any big name like blue chippers who were, reclamation projects. He was more looking for guys who've had snaps at the FBS level or the FCS level, get them on the field here, plug and play. I have him pegged as favorites of a touchdown or less 5 times, a short dog of less than a touchdown twice. So a lot of variability in what's going to happen here. I'm going to go under just because I think they need above average quarterback play to make this all work. And I don't trust Ricky Collins at all. Collin, what is your thoughts on him? I understand that it's tantalizing. You can go back and watch his high school film in 2021. He's got the physicality, but at the end of the day, the program is in his hands. The football is the program, and he is going to turn it over probably 15 or 20 times. They let him start 12 games here.
I'm kind of happy you said 15, because that's the number I'm about to throw out here. Ricky Collins started 5 games for Syracuse, 6 big-time throws, 15 turnover-worthy plays. That was just in 5 games, right? So what are we going to get here? Probably more than 15 times he makes KENNESAW responsible for turning the ball over, and that's really not going to work. Now, numbers perspective here, I make it 6.4, so under 6.5 with juice at minus 130. To me, is properly priced. There's really nothing else I can do with this team. I do like the fact that they have offensive line experience, right? They're at 5,000, over 5,000 snaps, and just like we said about Jacksonville State, like you dip into FCS and you get full-time starters and you bring them up. That plays out in this conference really well. So over 5,000 snaps of experience, thanks to FCS transfers came into the offensive line. So at least Ricky Collins should be protected in conference play here. Maybe that trims the turnover-worthy plays down. I'm not hopeful. I'm not playing them. I would like to go under, but at the same time, like if they replaced Ricky Collins and you could find a diamond in the rough, that feels like what the formula is going to be here for Kennesaw State. So no play for me, but I do lean to the under like you do.
This coaching staff, as I mentioned, they were able to bring the absolute best football out of Odom last year. Do you think they can even get 80% there and then be in the mix to go over this win total in November, Duck?
Not likely. I think Jerry Mack is an excellent coach, and he's clearly done a great job of provoking the on-field results that this program was dying to achieve, and they didn't do it in 2024. So, I mean, I think what he's doing is a good thing. I also lean under 6.5. There is a 110 out there available. Replacing both of the quarterbacks that played last season is going to be very difficult, and I just was not overly comfortable with the fact that they settled on Ricky Collins. I thought they did settle. I thought there were better options out there. You look at all the rushing productivity and the pass receivers, they're all gone. To replace a guy like Gabe Benyard, who was such an explosive deep threat, they don't have anyone like that this year. Zion Booker could round into a decent underneath threat, but it's going to be really TBD on if they have the downfield explosiveness that all 3 of us were used to seeing last season with Kennesaw State. The defensive line takes a huge step back. The linebacker group might be the best linebacker group in the conference, with Tywan Christopher, Baron Hopkins, and Cody Jones, who's going to play in the nickel. But the secondary is a near clean sweep. And I see this defense overall being much weaker. I thought it was interesting last year that Kennesaw State thrived on accumulating the explosive plays, and they jumped their opponents so early. If you go back and look at the game script against Arkansas State, Middle Tennessee, La Tech, FIU, UTEP, New Mexico State, the list goes on and on and on. They scored early and often in the first quarter, and they had double-digit leads in the first half of each of those games, and then they were able to hold on, as many of them ended up being squeakers. I don't know that we see a lot of that game script. That kind of evens out year to year, and I actually think that the schedule is quite tricky, particularly in the non-conference. Georgia State's going to come in here, and they're going to throw the football around, and without a pass rush and without a competent secondary, Cam Brown's going to go off. Back-to-back road trips against Tennessee and at Arkansas State, who would love to exact revenge for last year's loss. I think it's a 1-3 start, and then you've got Jacksonville State coming in. I don't think you're going to win that game. So I think the expectations and the luster of last year's conference championship season are going to wear off quickly, and the expectations are going to quickly go from we're going to repeat as conference champions to, man, let's try and fight and claw and scratch our way to a bowl game. And I think that's what we're going to see is a fringe bowl team. I think 5 or 6 wins is the most likely result. But look at how the schedule sets up. Jacksonville State and Liberty come in off bye weeks. Florida International comes in there late. They got to go to Western Kentucky at the end. I think it's real regression this year for Kennesaw State. I would say 6 wins is the top. So at minus 110, 6.5, it's an important hook. But I do like under the win total here of 6.5.
All right, let's go to another HBCU coach who found success, made it to a Celebration Bowl of zone, and that's Willie Simmons and this FIU team. They went 7-6 last year, decent offense, awful defense at time, needing to replace a lot on both sides of the ball. Win total sit at 6.5, conference plus 850. There used to be some better numbers out there. They were in the double digits. The reason why I'm torn on this team is that a lot of the star power is gone. Keyjon Owens, Alex Perry, Keywan Jenkins. That's QB 1, running back 1, wide receiver 1, all out the door. The massive J.J. Cole is in at 6'7", 250. JoJo Stone and Greg Gaines III could be a nice receiving tandem. Will the line gel? That's a question for so many of these G6 teams. They have some starting experience. They also peppered in 4 transfers, but it's going to be important because Cole is not mobile. The defense, which held them back from really breaking through last year, I like some of the moves they made, such as bringing in Ryan Gadsden from Lafayette. He was an all-Patriot League corner, just an absolute ball hawk and somebody that can give their secondary a little bit of bite. I still got to see the defense work together before I can even say that they're average. They're going to be favored in 6 games, and they're going to be a dog in 6 games. And nothing is unwinnable, and realistically, nothing's out of the question to lose. I mean, maybe the Sam Houston Long Island games should be gimmies. So if they go 2-0 there, can they go 5-5 the rest of the way to cash this over ticket? I'll go to you first, Duck, on this Willie Simmons hire that clearly panned out in year 1. This is a program that was looking for, it was their first winning season, I believe, in 7 years. So he immediately turned water into wine. But with this reload, does that mean that he gets more guys that are truly, his guys? Or do you think this is going to be a difficult road to hoe as he tries to replace basically his entire offensive engine?
Yeah, I think replacing the offensive engine is going to be key here. I thought he did a really nice job last year with the defense and taking a real putrid Florida International soft defense and making them havoc-minded. They got after the quarterback. They forced opposing quarterbacks into making quick decisions. And so they definitely need to do more of that. I think, depending on who they settle on, J.J. Cole and Zach Marker is also in from Delaware. I think that the QB situation is viable, and I think that they have some talent that they'll be able to work with and procure some good performances out of. Anthony Carey's still in the running back room. Devontae Lyons is here. I think the team can run the ball well so long as the offensive line is shored up. You're starting a true freshman at left tackle, a guy from Western Carolina, a backup from UAB, and a guy who was at Cal and never played. So there are some questions along the offensive line. Everybody does have that. Getting the offensive line up to speed very quickly in the first couple of games before you go to rival FAU will be important. This team has to get better in the red zone. Against FBS competition last year, they had 49 trips, only 27 touchdowns. They settled for 15 red zone field goals. It just wasn't enough. I think if FIU can develop some of the short to intermediate goal line sort of situational passing so they're not reliant on trying to run the ball, which they couldn't do on the goal line, or have quarterbacks scramble around and make nothing out of nothing. I think that the offensive productivity will be there. My concern defensively is that you do have 9 of the top 13 tacklers that depart, and the defense was such a critical part to this team, just being tough and the attitude, and they played very hard and physical football. So they need to get back to that. Kenton Simmons is back, but you've got guys like John Chaney, Mr. Clark, Victor Evans is gone, Josiah McGrew. They're big losses in the back seven, and they need to be replaced. If this coverage unit is strong once again, and they do have big physical corners, they preach physicality in the secondary, I do think that FIU can win some games this year. I really don't have a strong take on the win total, but I don't think FIU is going to drop off that badly.
All right, Shotgun Simmons, they used to call him that back in the day. He's not against just putting a quarterback back there and letting him just sling the ball all over the yard. And Cole absolutely shredded some bad pass defenses when he had his opportunities last year in a 12-2 touchdown to interception ratio. But the sacks did start to pile up a little bit. You saw him, looks like a graduate of the Drew Bledsoe mobility camp. Just pat the football until the pocket collapses on you. Is that enough to move you off of FIU, Collin? Or do you think just offensively they're going to have the right amount of balance and they're not going to put him in a position to play hero ball and get banged up throughout the course of the season?
Move me off. Florida International is winning this conference. Let's get straight here. So, look, I love all the talk about J.J. Cole, right? I mean, for the Mountaineers last year, he started 6 games. He ended with an impressive 12 TD to 2 interception ratio. You go underneath the hood into some of those other numbers, and it was legitimate. But, right, he's not mobile whatsoever. The good news is this is a top half offensive line for when it comes to Conference USA offensive line. So he'll get a little bit of protection. But what is the key element here? Slot receiver JoJo Stone, 2.3 yards per route run. The kid can flash. Absolutely. I don't have problems with this offense falling off. And by the way, Willie Simmons, 8 seasons as a head coach, never had a losing season. 6-6, I don't think so. 7 wins, I'll take it. I am way above everybody else in my projections on this team. I'm at 8.4. So I like 8-1 to win the conference. I like the over on these guys. Returning offensive line snaps. They're in the top 50 of all FBS. The Panthers, they don't even leave the state of Florida until mid-October when they play Jacksonville State. I can already count the wins on here. Buffalo, Long Island, New Mexico, Middle Tennessee, Missouri State, Sam Houston, right? The wins, I think, are going to be great. I don't have any problems with this team. Like I said about Jack State, FIU is going to be in the championship game, and if you put those two heads up against each other, I would believe FIU would win that game at this point. So 8-1 on me for the Panthers. I like the over. I am very bullish on JoJo Stone, and if Cole can get just an extra half second of protection, you're going to see FIU hitting some explosive touchdown passes.
All right, we've had a run of teams here that were, different flavors of bullish on. Coaches that we really like, as you just mentioned, Willie Simmons has coached a lot of football and he always wins. How about a first-time head coach in Casey Woods with Missouri State? He walks into a situation here, 7-6 last year. They're 128th in returning production. The entire coaching staff split for Coastal Carolina. This really gives year 0 vibes. Their win total, though, wouldn't necessarily indicate that at 4.5. Their conference odds at 27-1. I still think it's year 0 as soon as I look at the quarterback room. Skylar Locklear, pass. He regressed as a passer. I mean, he's got some wiggle as a runner. But, Casey Woods working as the OC at SMU, he needed quarterbacks who really could put the ball downfield. Yes, Jennings had mobility, but that wasn't his only skill. Henry Beelan, did nothing to indicate that he's a better option in all his years at Duke. Jamarie Robinson can ball out wide. I think he's going to be, a real quality go-to wide receiver. And from a fantasy perspective, or if you can ever get, player props, I think he'll be the number 1 option. Maybe Breezy Dubar, who comes in now that he's finally away from Boise and that loaded running back room. Does he pop? Perhaps. But the defense is also a complete refresh. Dylan Brooks, a former blue chipper, needs to be great on the edge to help this secondary that could be really porous. When you're going with a Kent State backup and an NAIA sophomore to play significant snaps, that's a big uh-oh. First-time head coach, bad quarterback options, patchwork defense, non-con with roadies to Texas A&M, SMU, and they're hosting Marshall all in September. Lack of confidence. I think they're going to get beat down. I think they're going to get banged up. And they play the projected top 5 of Conference USA, 3 of them on the road. Give me the under. This is my favorite win total here. I'll go alt under 3.5 as well. I think this team bottoms out. Are you with me, Colin?
That's the only play that you can make. 'Cause, I mean, I project them at 4. So under 3.5, I think is at plus 135-ish out there. So that's justified. But I think that's the only way that you can go, because you're right. Casey Woods at SMU had to have quarterbacks to run his system, and he's not really going to have that right now. I mean, even Henry Beelan, I mean, he's in his 5th season. Skylar Locklear is in his 5th season. I mean, are we going to put Skylar Locklear in, use his 10 rushing touchdowns, and like morph the offense around running? I don't know, because I don't think the passing game is going to be there whatsoever. I really do not like this schedule. You're going to play 4 games in a 19-day span during October. I mean, that's how it falls when you want to be on TV on Tuesday and Wednesday nights in October, but that is still pretty brutal. And this is the most inexperienced offensive line in all Conference USA. They return 1 career start. I don't care if you're in Conference USA, the SoCon. I don't care what you're in. You got to have more experience than that. No quarterback, no offensive line. I think you're justified in taking an under 3.5 at plus money.
Duck, can we make this just a team handshake and get this one to the window on some unders?
Yeah, I've had this play under 4.5 for 6 weeks in my portfolio. Missouri State overperformed significantly more than I expected in year 1, but now you get a new staff. The experienced staff is off to Coastal Carolina. Huge losses at quarterback, running back, receiver, offensive line. 11 of the top 15 tacklers on defense are gone. A bad defense that overperformed last year. And again, now you're resorting to Henry Bellin, who was a career backup at Duke, or Skylar Locklear. Have you seen this guy play football before? It is atrocious, and it's been bad everywhere he's been. I do think Breezy Dubar has some pop. Ramon Green has some pop at running back. I think there are some pieces that they can try to work out there and do something. The receiver room aggregate is way down compared to priors. You got a lot of last year's backups that are going to be called into roles where they're going to have to catch passes and produce, and they're not used to doing that. The offensive line last year, even with Jacob Clark, an experienced quarterback who was very comfortable in the system, the O-line surrendered 112 tackles for loss and 52 sacks, and now you're replacing all 5 starters. Whoever wins this quarterback job is going to consistently be faced with pressure, and they're going to have to ad-lib and scramble very regularly. I don't see it working out. The defense is a major reload in the trenches. I don't think they're going to have the toughness up front to stop the run. And the schedule is brutal. It's 1-3 in the non-conference. Marshall's coming in off of revenge from last year's embarrassing loss. Marshall was up 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, blew it and lost. It ended up costing the Herd Bowl eligibility. I think they come in with revenge. They go to A&M. They go to SMU. And then the conference schedule is also very tricky. Colin alluded to this. It's one of only 2 teams that faces significant compression in the schedule with 4 games in 19 days. And they play Western Kentucky, Kennesaw, Delaware, and then Sam Houston could be out of gas at that point. But the close of this schedule is brutal. The last 4 weeks, they go to FIU, they go to Jacksonville State, they host Liberty. Even to try to look forward into next season and try and build momentum and win some games for pride or whatever else, the close is brutal here. So this is my favorite win total of the conference. Again, I've had it in pocket for 6 weeks. Under 4.5 is something I really like, and still plenty of numbers out there. So got to go under.
All right, let's keep the negativity just streaming. Let's let this hate just course through our veins here for a second. New Mexico State, 3-9, 73rd in returning production. Tony Sanchez, just a public service announcement. Great, phenomenal high school coach. 85-5 at Bishop Gorman. This ain't high school, brother, and it's not working. Their win total, for some reason, is still sitting at 4.5, 19-1. It should be 900-1 to win this league. He went 20-40 at UNLV. He's 7-17 here in Las Cruces. He's never won more than 5 games. David Yost was supposed to be the answer, the journeyman offensive coordinator who's made it work at a lot of, kind of strange stops at the G6 level and the P4 level. He couldn't get it going last year. Adam DeMonte, kind of came on late in the year and looked a little bit like a gamer, albeit against UTEP at Middle Tennessee. But now he's in this quarterback battle with the Furman transfer, Trey Hedden, major turnover problems. That's all you need to know. 22 picks in 20 career starts. If it's him, I'm out on this team from the get-go. The defense is the silver lining. They had their moments. They were really good at taking the ball away. 24 takeaways. That was 14th in the country. Sanchez has had that touch with his DBs over the years, and I trust that the secondary will still be aggressive and ball hawkish again. but can they stop the run? They gave up 4.4 yards per carry last year, and everyone who got into the red zone got points, and it was usually a touchdown. Joe Morris is hoping to improve there. He gets another year as the DC. I don't see how he's going to do it with the guys in his front seven. They're dogs in 9 games. Now, albeit they're going to be single-digit projected dogs 6 times, but really the only games that you got to feel great about are Mercyhurst, that should be a win, and Sam Houston. But I'm willing to go under here because I think they waste all their home games on the schedule because I don't think they can win them. Jacksonville State, Liberty, UDEL, New Mexico, they all come to Las Cruces. I don't see them winning those games. And then they have to go to Middle Tennessee, and we talked about them earlier. It's like they're in desperation mode. Sam Houston, can they get a little bit better? Like, you're already counting that as a win. I have that factored in. So there's just not any layups for a team with so many offensive issues. And for that reason, I'm under 4.5 here. Collin, seems like you're chomping at the bit to get in here. Let's talk.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I make it 4.1, and so there's a little bit of an edge mathematically when you're at 4.5 under at minus 120, and I make it 4.1. But let's forget the math. Let's throw it out the window. I mean, there's no quarterback one determined. We're heading into fall camp. I apologize getting the beat reporters out of Cruces to tell me who's playing quarterback there. A little bit of a problem here, but it's a mess. It doesn't matter who's named the starter. This offense is going to have serious issues doing anything worthwhile. So you're kind of leaning on the defense because the offense is the most inexperienced of any team inside of Conference USA. You do get 4 of your top 6 tacklers to return, but like you mentioned about the schedule, the 3 strongest teams in this conference, Western Kentucky, Jack State, Liberty, they all come to play New Mexico State. So I have no faith in them. Tony Sanchez is 7-17 here. I mean, it's not working. He needs to go back to being a defensive coordinator, install his Rocky Long personnel at everywhere that he goes. The head coach thing is not working. So I agree with you on the under. It's just not a big enough margin for me to play, but they're fade city all the way here, except against Mercyhurst, right?
Any quick thoughts? I mean, you can answer that one. They're going to beat Mercyhurst, right, Doug?
They'll beat Mercyhurst. I will tell you this. I do think the defense will be a little bit tougher. They do have guys, Henry Davis, Gabe Peterson's a good player, Sone Apui at linebacker, and Torrey Geathers are decent linebackers. So they have some talent defensively that they can be a little bit feisty on that side of the ball in league play. But there's just such a chance that this offense is so paltry. I actually think they're going to run the ball a little more this year, and they have to be better. Have to be. It was 77 yards per game and 2.6 yards per carry on the ground last year, and 10 times they were held under 100 yards. Neither quarterback option is great. The betting deliverables I do have, I faded these guys against Florida State in week 0. I'd lay up to 34.5. I think there's still some 30s or 31s out there, so go grab some Florida State, a program that needs a massive home win to get the fans to feel good about something, and they're going to get it in week 0. But the other deliverable is I would look potentially to the under when they play Mercyhurst, who has very, very little offensiveness offensive football to hang their hat on. They lose their quarterback. I can get into Mercyhurst later. I think that's going to be a defensive slog. I think there's a chance that New Mexico State wins that game, only scoring 21 or 24 points and holding Mercyhurst to single digits. And I think that totals about 54.5. So I would look under in week 1 against Mercyhurst, which is New Mexico State's second game. I'm fading them in week 0.
Buy the hook. 55, the biggest number in all of totals. Buy that hook.
I don't think it'll come into play. I think it'll probably be 45 or 47 total points.
I think it's a missed opportunity. We got to put your Mercyhurst season preview behind a paywall on Patreon. I think there's at least 25 sickos who would pay $5 for that. So
I think we're going to have something that we can tease there because we're going to have some exclusive FCS content for Action Pro subscribers. So you'll want to make sure that you have that. It's very economical. You get a great package full of benefits. You're going to get my FCS content, and you will know that John Urena, the quarterback for Mercyhurst, is no longer there, and their head coach left, and they're breaking in a new staff with very, very little returning production.
Middle Tennessee, we're down to 2 teams here. As I mentioned, last chance you for Derek Mason, 3-9 for the second straight year. New roster, pretty much 122nd in returning production. Their bowl odds per ESPN's Bill Conley, 3%. Win total, 3.5. Conference, 35-1. These books, it's shameful. You're hanging 35-1 on this, like 300-1. Like, give us a reason to all be in Murfreesboro in November, hoping for the dream season to come together. 35-1 is offensive. But let's talk about the only thing that can get you excited about MTSU football. Roman Gagliano started the final 3 games. They went 2-1, threw 7 touchdowns, 0 picks. He tossed in a pair of rushing TDs. Their running back room has a bit of pop with Antonio Martin from K-State, a stud from Saginaw Valley State who averaged 10 yards per carry, comes in. He's also a hybrid weapon. They're going to put him in the slot. They really need someone to emerge outside of him, though, at wide receiver. You know, the guys on the perimeter have to give Gagliano something to work with. Pair that with line issues, and I'm only cautiously optimistic that they can flirt with this number to get to 4 wins. Defense has a great edge player in Reggie Johnson, a promising secondary. You know, it's kind of pieced together through the portal. I see 3 winnable games: Murray State at Sam Houston, New Mexico State at home. And then you got to pick up a win over Nevada, Kennesaw to get to 4. This is a pass for me. I think they're going to be right there. I think they're going to get to 3-9 for the 3rd straight year. He's going to get fired, and it's going to be a rebuild. There's things to get interested in the quarterback room, at least. And, you know, there's no Dwight Dasher walking through that door, but I would love it if the Blue Raiders were a little bit more exciting this year. Anything that you want to add onto that, Duck?
I don't love the team. I don't love Derek Mason as a head coach. His situational in-game management was atrocious last season. Very poor. Third down decisions, red zone decisions, late game and late end of half clock management decisions were the direct impact in losses against Missouri State, Jacksonville State, Delaware. They lucked into a win last year against Nevada. They were down 13-0 with 6 minutes left and scored back-to-back touchdowns to steal one. They will not do that against Nevada this year. I've got these guys as dogs in 11 games potentially this season. I could see a 1-4 start fairly easily. And if they don't beat Delaware at home, I could see Mason being shown the door. I could see him being shown the door before the bye week, if I'm being honest with you. But the first 6 conference games are tough. With UDEL, FIU, Kennesaw, Western, Liberty. Are they winning any of those games? There is a major QB upgrade, and I will give them that. And I think it was stunning that they kept Cameron Lacey around. I could see the betting deliverable here is I could see higher scoring games against Jacksonville State, at Kansas, and hosting Delaware. So I'll look to play overs there. But otherwise, I'm out on these guys.
Collin, their new OC, Anthony Selfo. Tell me about him. What can we expect?
Well, I think you're going to get a much better offense, especially because they're bookended by 2 tackles that have a ton of experience. Reese Tripp being one of a Minnesota transfer that comes in. He's going to be the blindside tackle here. So at least from an offensive coordinator perspective, they're going to have something to work with. I am still wondering why I'm higher on Middle Tennessee than everybody else mathematically. I make them 4.8 wins. And I was just doing some checking here while Duck was talking. I took 4 points off them from experience perspective, and I gave them 1 point from a second order win total. Some net close losses account for that second order win total 1 point bump, but some experience losses take that 4 points down. But how did I have a net -3 and I still make the team over what they have? And a lot of people are against them. When you look at their quarterback, Roman Gagliano, he took over as starter in week 12 and he led them to a victory in 2 games against Sam Houston and New Mexico State. 7 passing touchdowns, 9 big time throws, 0 interceptions. I mean, there is at least a little bit of something there that the new offensive coordinator can work with. And their new offensive coordinator, I mean, he held the same job at Sela. A lot of Sela players coming through the portal and getting here. There's going to be a run heavy game, clock control, bringing in, all of his players that he had before and his offensive line coach. When you look at the team overall, you're like, there's all these changes with players. There's all these changes with coaches. But the offensive coordinator is bringing in his offensive line coach. And he's bringing in his players. So it's Sela's offense, right? And so there is continuity here, which I think plays a factor. When you look at the schedule, like there are games they can win. I'm ending the season with Sam Houston and New Mexico State. We just talked junk about New Mexico State. I'm going to do the same with Sam Houston. There's other games they can win on here. Like you're hosting Nevada. I get it from a power rating perspective. You're saying the Wolfpack can show up. I'm not really sure the Wolfpack can travel out here to a city that Stuckey visited and got COVID from. There are winnable games out here on this schedule that I think can get them to 4 and eclipse this win total. So I'm bullish on Middle Tennessee. And, I can see why everybody's negative on them the way that it's going, but this is Sela's offense, coordinator, offensive line coach, players. It's an improvement from what they've had. So I'm bullish on Middle Tennessee. I've got a couple weeks to make a decision whether I'm going to fire in the over, and I should mathematically, according to my numbers.
Let's close out CUSA with Sam Houston. 2-10, 80th in returning production. Their win total set at 3.5. This is a little bit more my speed. 75-1 to win the conference. At least they're throwing them a number. Tons of former 3-stars from Power 4 teams walk through the doors, though. I'm just going to say this and try to put a spin on this. 23 stars in total in this portal class. You can make the argument that this is the best portal class in Conference USA. The offense returns Coco Brown as their lead back. Landon Locke is back at quarterback. Is that a good thing? I'll let you guys speak to that. The defense is where most of the P4 guys ended up. And, I mean, they get to play actual home games again. Now that Bowers Stadium is renovated, it's going to include a brand new 60,000 square foot, 5-level press box. You know, they're going to have a covered concourse, club seating, a fan shop, you know, grand entrance stairway to the concourse. It's going to look good for those aerial shots from the drone, improved concessions and restrooms. So the snacks and the shitters are going to be great for Sam Houston. Is that enough to move you off of thinking this is going to be an implosion this year for Phil Longo, Collin?
No. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with Phil Longo's offense, because their seconds per play last year was like 28 seconds per play, 27 seconds per play. That is way far from the Ole Miss offenses that were going like 19 seconds per play. And that makes me think in a year sub-zero -1 type year, he's just trying to get some sort of offense going with the players that he has. And I think he's right back there again. I mean, there's nearly zero experience on this offensive play chart. I'm sorry, this offensive depth chart. There's nothing there for him to go at all. And by the way, you remember me saying before I didn't like a team because they played 4 games in 19 days. Well, Sam Houston is doing the exact same thing, except they have powerhouses with Liberty and Western Kentucky from the conference coming in to do that same thing. There's no experience on the offense. I think he's a little bit lost on what to do with this roster, because this is not the Longo offenses that he tried to force at Wisconsin and the one that he was running at Ole Miss. So I think he's a little bit lost. Great, you're playing at home. It's still a new stadium to Phil Longo. It's year 2. So I project them 1.9. I played the alt under 2.5 plus 140 here. It's just not happening. Does Longo make it to November? I set the odds at -110 both ways.
Duck, all these P4 guys on defense, maybe some chicken fried steak in the club seats. Like, is any of this giving you optimism, or do you think this is truly the dregs, the worst of the worst team in arguably the worst G6 league?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I do think that there would be some value in the betting markets to extract from this team. This was the worst defense in the conference and potentially the country last year. 484 yards per game surrendered, 5.4 yards per carry on the ground given up, 35 points or more surrendered 8 times. And I don't think that the defense is going to get any better. I don't think they can get pressure, despite some of the portal efforts. Dylan Frazier and Darian Jackson could be tougher on the interior D-line, but I'm not banking on it. Chauncey Cheedy and Jaden Fry have some resemblance of at least some competent edge rushers, but I don't know that the sack and havoc numbers are going to drastically improve. The linebacker group is subpar with Brian Bates, Dean Ford, Tokyo Gordon, just a mediocre bunch. The secondary, Jace Arnold, Octavius Henderson, Cesar McGee. It's just not a lot of talent. It's not what you want to try to build as the cornerstone pillars of a tough defense, or even a middling Conference USA defense. And I think that I think the secondary could get torched once again. The offense has such a long way to go. They, even with improvement, and if you try to get Alton McCaskill involved in the run game, they were 36 out of 160 last year on third down, 22% successful third down conversions, dead last in FBS. The red zone, my guys, was putrid. 21 out of 32 conversions, 13 of those were touchdowns. 13 touchdowns on 32 attempts. Awful. It settled for 8 field goals and returned away 11 times empty-handed. The offensive line has to give time to the quarterback. They allowed so much havoc last year. 36 sacks, 93 TFLs. It just, even if McCaskill is a guy who could be a shining star, the offensive line is not going to enable rushing lanes to be there for him to run through. They do have a decent receiver portal haul with Chris Reed, Grady O'Neill is okay, Christian Zachary. It's not horrendous, but it's not great. It's a C- type of Conference USA receiving core. The quarterback play might be the worst in the conference and worst playmaking ability in the conference, which is such a problem. And Phil Longo recognized that last year with the players that were held over from Casey Keeler's team, which is why we didn't see the speed. Maybe we see a little more speed this year. The other thing too last year, small thing, but they played their home games an hour away from campus in a soccer stadium. They do get their home field back, and there will be a little bit of juice around the program and kind of what's going on. So there could be some improvement. It's not going to necessarily result in notching wins in the win-loss column, but the betting deliverable for me is their opener on the road against Troy should be an over. Troy will hit the explosives. They're going to run the veer and shoot. Troy's offensive line will not hold up against the rigors of Sunbelt play, but in this game, they'll be just fine to run the slow mesh veer and shoot offense. They'll hit downfield explosives. Again, Sam Houston surrendered 35 or more 8 times last year. They're going to give up a huge number to Troy in this week 1 opener, and I think that maybe with Troy's defense not being as tough as they were last season, I think Sam Houston can score a few points too. So at 51.5 or so, I'm going to look over in their opener. That's really what I have for a deliverable on these guys, but they're not going to win a lot of games.
All right, let's go rapid fire around the horn here. Who you got in the conference championship? Who's winning it? And your favorite win totals? I've been talked off Delaware. You guys convinced me. I was thinking about getting a little bit cute, seeing the Blue Hens there in the title game, but I'm going to stick with a different kind of foul. I'm going to go Jacksonville State over FIU. I love under for New Mexico State and under for Missouri State. Those are mine. Duck, you're on Jacksonville State. Who are they going to play in the title game?
I think they could play FIU if they can get on a roll and get the offensive line figured out. I think Liberty has got to have it this year, and I think we'll see much more spirited football. I think the offense is going to run through this league. So on the record, I think Jacksonville State will play Liberty in the conference title game. Missouri State under 4.5, Western Kentucky under 7.5.
All right, Collin, you're got your Willie Simmons jersey on, believing in FIU. Pitbull Stadium's going to be rocking. They're going to wear the Biscayne blues and all their incredible theme nights. It's a fun team to be rolling with for the entire season. Who are they going to play in the title game?
They're going to play Jacksonville State, and they're going to beat them. So I like FIU 8-1 to overcome Jack State, about plus 450 out there. So I know that there are a couple books that say to make the championship game, if you can search around and find that. But I do like FIU to win this conference. But let me go a little bit negative. Mini Coochie has nothing around him. Delaware under 5.5 with some plus money out there. And Longo is out the door by the time conference. CUSA October midweeks come to an end. Under 2.5, also at plus money for Sam Houston. So a little bit of cold water there for Delaware and Sam Houston.
Longo,
FIU to make the title game plus 360.
Oh, that's a play. That's a play. Go get it.
Phil Longo not even around long enough to enjoy the new nacho cheese machines at the concession stations.
But he'll eat
All
it.
right.
I mean, have you seen him? He'll eat it. I mean, look at him.
I'd love to say that we're at the end of the G6 rainbow, but we actually have one more team here sneaking in the independent ranks, and that's UConn. Jim Mora was just too good for Stores. He goes 18-7 in his last 2 years with 2 bowl bids. He hits the road, goes to Colorado State, a great get for the Rams. In comes Jason Candle, a 2-time MAC champion, great recruiter, and a famed blower of games when favored by double digits. This win total is intriguing, sitting at right there at the bowl eligibility line of 5.5. Because this kind of feels like a year zero, 134th in returning production, 56 transfers in, 19 of them from Toledo. A really solid running back room, Trey Cornist, Kenji, Christian. The quarterback battle, though, remains unsettled. It's stretching into the summer, into the fall camp here. Jake Merklinger comes from Tennessee, Caleb Osborne from Toledo, and then they also have Tucker McDonald, who hung around. They're all competing. I would imagine it's going to go to the Tennessee kid, but we'll see. The defense looks a bit more organized. Kevon Sherman was an absolute missile at linebacker last year, 17 tackles for loss for Toledo. Musa Kane is grabbing a starting corner spot and could be really good as well. It's just a shame that this isn't like year 3 of Jason Candle in Stores, because they get 3 Power 4s coming to them. They get Maryland, they get Syracuse, they get North Carolina. They're all potentially winnable, I suppose. It's just kind of a waste because it's so rare, to flip around instead of the paycheck games with these G6 programs going on the road. They're actually coming to them. I see 5 wins here, and this is why it's, I can't play it one way or the other. Lafayette, Southern Miss, I think they get Cuse or North Carolina. North Carolina could be a white flag kind of situation team this year. UMass, and then probably Wyoming or Old Dominion late. We'll see. I think this is right on the number. Colin, what do you think?
They'll be blowing our ACC pod preview. I'm not sure North Carolina is going to win a game this year. I'm telling you, if Jim Moore Jr. would still be the coach here, I think North Carolina would be in big trouble for an upset. But lest we have Jason Candle, I'm still interested. I'm going to have to ring up some of our friends on the beat reporter path about how Jason Candle ended up here, because I know there were bigger job offers than this over the years. So I still would like to figure that out. I make this 4.5. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. You have to go under. And if you want to play under 4.5, I think you're getting juice around plus 150. I'm not up with Nunzio Campanella, the former OC from Syracuse. Did not like his play calling while he was with the Orange. And then, their defensive coordinator comes from Pitt, but he was the linebacker coach there. So another Narduzzi product is going to come out. We'll see what he's got. Is he going to be ultra aggressive? Do you have the players to pull that off? You mentioned the schedule here. There's not a big chance to get to 6 wins. Not sure, Jason Candle can pull that off. And then the quarterback situation really is a story. You got 3 guys going for it. Tucker McDonald is a holdover. Jake Merklinger came in from Tennessee, and then there's Osborne, who came with Candle from Toledo also. So I think there was an interview that was cut in the past week. I've been doing a lot of fall camp reports and putting some stuff out on the Twitter, and Candle's like, you guys are worried about the quarterback situation. I'm not. I'm just kind of like, when are you going to name a starting quarterback? How comfortable do you feel about that? I'm not getting the warm fuzzies from here, and I think Candle's going to kind of politicize bullshit through it. So I do like the under here. I think you should take the juice number at 4.5, and we'll see how it plays out.
Duck, thoughts on Jason Candle and his reign of terror of blowing games as a double-digit favorite over in the MAC? Does he bring that similar vibe to UConn, where they have talent, they win, but they still stub their toe in spots that is almost impossible to predict?
Absolutely. That's just the mantra of Jason Candle. Nobody's done less with more over his tenure in the MAC. You look at the 2 MAC championships that he did win, they should have won 7 MAC titles with all the talent that they had. Toledo regularly had the most robust level of talent in the MAC, and he squandered it away. 16 or 18 times over his tenure, they lost games outright as double-digit favorites. That's just what he does. And he's not gonna wow me. There's an insane roster overhaul here, downgraded at every position. The quarterback's going to be a downgrade from Fagnano. Pick your poison on any of the 3 that could win the job. It's not going to be Joey Fagnano. Running back talent is a downgrade. The receiver explosiveness is not going to be there. Defense struggled to stop the run and gave up over 400 yards per game last season. They're not going to be any better this year. I think when you look at the running back room aggregate, it's okay. Trey Cornist, I think, was underutilized at Central Michigan. I think he could be utilized appropriately here. Kenji Christian also could. They both have wiggle to them, so there could be some productiveness in the ground game. The receiver room loses a lot of the downfield vertical threat that UConn had, and the ability to garner the explosive plays and to register the quick strike offense. I just absolutely do not think that they have that here. You're getting 5 Toledo backups at receiver and some non-FBS players that transfer in. But I just don't know that the star power is going to be anywhere close offensively to what we saw. The O-line, Terrence Moore is coming in at center. He's coming back from injury, so we'll see if he's in true form right away. Ty Chan, he's back at right guard. He played here last year. The 3 others, Raphael Green, Christian Richter, and Isaiah Switzer, all spot starters at the G6 ranks. So they're down a notch. I mean, offensive line play was good last season. I think it's not going to be as good this year. So, I mean, you're down at all levels. You do get a guy in Eshawn Carter who comes in, and he is a good one. And Andrew Laurich is also a good player along the defensive line. So they have a couple pieces there. I've got questions on the linebacker group. I think the secondary takes a big step back. You're going to be asking for guys, again, that were non-FBS guys like John Lista, who was an Ivy League linebacker who was all over the field in the Ivy League, but I don't know that necessarily translates here. And the secondary could be atrocious. They may end up starting a pair of freshmen, a sophomore, at safety could get the nod. Tracy Reveals could be okay here, but really they need to find 3 other pieces in the secondary, and I don't know that they're going to have it. I think they're going to get exposed badly with the lack of a pass rush. I project UConn favored in 3 games. The opener against FCS Lafayette, I think they'll be favored at Southern Miss, who's atrocious, and I think they'll be favored against UMass. Outside of that, I don't think that there's going to be a situation where Connecticut is going to pull 3 upsets to get to bowl game eligibility. I will pause for a minute and tell you this is why I do what I do in May, because while everyone else is sweating it out at 4.5 or 5.5, I have under 6.5 in pocket, and I'm not really sweating it all. But even at 5.5, I don't have UConn in a bowl game this year, and I do think under 5.5 is a go. When I look at the schedule, particularly with the P4 teams, yeah, it's a fun story for UConn to have competed well against the ACC last year, but UConn is playing Power 4 teams that are in absolute desperation mode. Maryland cannot afford to drop a game. They have the hot Mike Locksley starts. They have to win early in the season. Full focus for Maryland. Syracuse is coming back from an atrocious season, but you kind of got to throw some of that out the window because they get Angeli back. They're not playing the lacrosse player at quarterback, and it looked like Ricky Collins at times was the lacrosse player at quarterback. He was just downright terrible. Syracuse needs a win. North Carolina, they're not a good football team. They are not, but they have got to notch wins when they can. And so they're teams that are in desperation mode. And then you're playing some of the G6 upper echelon pedigree teams, Old Dominion and James Madison. I don't see stubbing their toe. And then the reward at the end of the season, after you've already gone to Air Force and Miami of Ohio, you have to close your season going to Laradice. And Wyoming is a team that's in desperation, has to make a bowl game, something I think they can do if they beat UConn. Just too many games against teams that need to beat Connecticut. And Jason Candle does not handle those situations overtly well. So I'm under 5.5. I'm under 6.5. I don't think this team's going to be very good this year.
All right, gentlemen, we did it. Every single G6 team previewed for Collin Wilson and Duck. I'm Mike Calabrese. This has been the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Hit that button if you're watching on YouTube to subscribe, to like, give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the pod. Collin and Stuck will be back with the Big Ten Conference preview next. And after that, every other Power 4 conference, including Notre Dame. So we're not going to miss a single team. It's going to slide right into the start of the season in week 0. We're almost there. Best of luck with all your bets here during the dog days of summer. If you're sweating out the WNBA, golf, whatever you're doing to bide your time, you're almost there. We're proud of you, and we'll see you at the window.